Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing markvucak in the 15-minute pool on ICC. Let's play d4 in this one. So last game we failed to win a winnable ending. It was rather tragic. So let's see if we can take revenge this time around. Benko Gambit, okay. One of my personal favorites from the black side. And let's play e3. This has been my go-to weapon recently against the Benko. I think the accepted lines with b takes a6 also deserve serious attention because those have been giving black issues lately. But I like this modest e3 line. And now we'll play a4 and support b5. And often we'll swing this rook up to a3 as well. In fact, let's do that right away. So this helps out in a lot of capacities. You get the rook off of the diagonal, same diagonal as that dark square bishop. And sometimes it can assist in defending c3 and maybe even enabling you to take back with the pawn should black take on b5. I'm just going to play knight to f3 and leave the b pawn as is for now. And he does take. Usually that's like a minor victory for white because you get to take this way. Let me check my opponent's stats real quick. Peak rating of 1992, about 1,000 games played in the 15-minute pool. All right, so bishop a6. If I take, he's probably going to take with the knight. So I have in mind just to castle instead. And maybe if bishop takes b5, even take with the pawn. I mentioned that possibility, and could happen. So castles, bishop takes b5, a takes b5. If rook takes a3, b takes a3, I like the look of that. But probably they wouldn't do that. Probably they would play knight bd7 instead. So castles, bishop takes b5. Let's say knight takes b5. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that helps us a lot. I think I'm just going to take. I changed my mind. We'll clarify the situation with the bishops, and then I'll castle next move. I don't know that it's a big deal, allowing black the use of the b4 square with the knight. For now, I think it's fine to do so. Knight g4. Okay, so I think they're aiming for that e5 square. That's usually what they're up to with that move. Now, do I play h3 and force them there, or just let him play knight e5? I think I'm probably going to let him do that. Maybe queen e2, maybe knight b5. Bishop d2 also crossed my mind, although I think it's a little early to play that. Knight b5, knight c7 most likely will be the answer. Knight takes, queen takes, and we get simplifications, but perhaps that's okay for him. Maybe bishop d2. Yeah, let's do bishop d2. There's not a lot of pressure on my pawn on d5 at the moment, so I think I can take this opportunity to develop knight e5, and I probably want to stop knight c4, so I think I'll just take. Get rid of that knight. Now queen e2 maybe. Looks good. Kind of eye this knight over here on a6. He could play the knight into b4, whereupon he would be threatening bishop takes c3 followed by knight takes d5. So maybe rook d1, so that if bishop takes c3, I can take with the bishop. What if rook d1, knight c2, though? Rook b3. Guess my rook is getting out of there. Yeah, that should probably be okay. It looks a little awkward, but I think it's fine. So often when you go up a pawn in the Benko, because usually you're winning a pawn in the early stages, right, as white, you have to play carefully if you want to consolidate. And I had a game in Dallas from the black side of the Benko against National Master Chris Tulin, where he also played one of the main lines and was up a pawn, but the course of that game kind of shows how difficult it is sometimes for black to for white to consolidate that extra pawn and get a handle on black's activity. Here I'm thinking bishop e1, just to rule out that knight c2 move. It's a pesky move. And I don't want to have to think about it any further. So yeah, let's do this. Maybe later I'll play knight b5. Or maybe even next move if I get a chance. Knight in here, and possibly bishop takes b4 will be a threat in the future. Rook a6, so probably he's getting ready to double his rooks. But knight b5, rook a8, I can always play b3. That looks good. And this knight will be under attack. So after, say, rook fa8, b3, I'll be ready to play bishop takes b4, c takes b4, rook a2. And then maybe swing the rook over to c2. b3 is a very helpful move. And what does he do about that knight? It's not easy to move it anywhere good right now. All of its squares are currently covered, so I'm just looking to eliminate it next move. And then switch my play to the c-file. And this protected pass a pawn will be really nice in the future. Also, that pawn on b4 should be weak. Maybe he could play queen a5 right now, but I don't think that's an improvement. He puts himself in a pin if he does that. Like maybe queen c4 is a good answer. Yeah, I don't like how black has played the last couple moves. I think they could have done better than this. So rook a5, is that a prelude to a sacrifice here? So if I play bishop takes b4, c takes b4, rook a2, rook takes b5, a takes b5, rook takes a2, queen takes a2, and just up an exchange. That might be a little tricky to win, though. But it is an extra exchange. I wonder if their idea is bishop takes b4, c takes b4, rook a2, queen takes b5. Sack the queen. A takes b5, rook takes a2. Let's say queen c4. That's got to be close to winning, if not just winning for me. I don't know. It's interesting. I think I almost have to take on b4, because what are my alternatives? Knight c3, maybe. Backward move. Let's look at that again. Bishop takes b4, c takes b4, rook a2, queen takes b5, a takes b5, rook takes a2, queen c4. If rook a1, I would have to play rook f1 there. Looks weird, but I think I have everything covered in that case. I don't get back rank checkmated or anything. So actually, that position is probably fine. Although it seems weird. I'm going to go for it. Let's see what happens. He can't play rook takes b5 right now because I take with the pawn and I'm attacking the rook on a8 and also my bishop is defending. So he would just come out a rook minus if he does that right away. So c takes b4 is forced. And then after rook a2, it'll be interesting to see which way black takes on b5, or if they take it all. I think they should take on b5 one way. But which way remains to be seen. If they take with the rook, then a takes b5, rook takes a2, queen takes a2, queen takes b5. That's just a pure extra exchange for white. No, bishop c3. Okay, so another surprise. But now I could play rook c2 and at least get out of the a-file pressure. And rook takes b5 doesn't look nearly as effective as it would have been on the previous move. I could also play knight takes c3 right now. But I'm a little worried about black's activity in that case. Now let's play rook c2. Just occupy that file. Here again, I think they're almost forced to sack the exchange. Because I don't see how they'll continue without doing so. Rook c8, okay, so they continue to defy my recommendations. They're just going to defend the bishop. Maybe a lift move for my king would be good now, like h4 or something. Queen g4 also comes to mind, attacking the rook on c8. I'm going to hold off on a capture on c3. I don't need to do that right away. Rook d3 could be a move. I don't like rook d3 because that interferes with my defense here. Let's just play g3. I think that's a good compromise. I can always bring the king up to g2 if necessary. Just stop all the back rank stuff. Looks like I'm up a clean pawn right now. Constantly have to be vigilant about rook takes b5 possibilities, but for the moment, this is fine. Time-wise, a little bit behind black, but it's okay. We have a nice position in exchange for that time deficit. Rook c5, active move. Maybe e4. Advance a little bit. Might be nice to keep this pawn on a dark square, though, kind of as a buffer for their dark square play, but I feel like they're trying to take d5 in their sights. Maybe just king g2 as well. Knight takes c3, I'm still not keen to play. I think e4, though, looks pretty good. e4, if they sack on b5, yeah, that'll work out fine, I think. All right, let's do this. This might be a positional mistake. I'm kind of worried, like in the long run, this could be an inaccuracy because it takes pawns off dark squares. But we'll find out. I want to free up my d1 rook from defending d5. Like if ever I want to play rook d3 and attack that bishop, I have to make sure this pawn is better defended. So that's part of my reasoning. Yep, and he's going to go for the sacrifice. I thought he would do that at some point, so makes sense. And here I was thinking rook a2, just to stop him from playing down the file. The annoying thing is, even though I'm up in exchange, it's pretty closed. So it's going to be a while before the rook versus the bishop is felt, I think. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if black played rook a5 and even offered another exchange. And maybe tried to go attack b3 eventually. That wouldn't shock me. Okay, maybe rook c1. I think he's trying to move that bishop away. Or king g2. There's also rook a6 or queen a6. Ah, maybe queen a6. Queen a6 could force a trade, couldn't it? Yeah, better do queen a6 while I have the chance. Swap the queens by force. If he goes back to b8 or d8, I guess you could go queen d8, because then if queen a8, there's rook c8. Okay, so queen b8 would keep the queens on for now. Although I have made some headway on the queen side. Maybe that's helpful. Queen d8, maybe queen b7, threatening rook a8. Oh, there's that too. There's also that. But now I can check and play rook a7, right?
Check.
And my major pieces are going to start trickling in. Okay. So if the queen moves, queen b6. Is rook b7 just trapping the queen? He's queen a5. Not quite. But I could then trade the queens and go after e7. Even that is still kind of tough to win. Queen c8. Okay, so he says, I'm okay with a trade. And I must trade now. And then let's just go take this pawn. All right, so we snagged a pawn out of that deal. Rook d7. Yeah, let's go here and attack d6. Just trying to watch my time a little bit. E4 under attack. I could play f3. Bishop d4 check, king g2. That should be fine. Then rook comes into c3, though. Huh. Rook takes f7, king takes e4. I'm sure should be winning. Yeah, I'm not sure it's worth allowing counterplay with f3 and bishop d4. So let's just take this pawn. And then we'll take this one as well. I just got to make sure that king doesn't become too active and that I don't lose like the b3 pawn. But I'm up so much material, it really shouldn't matter. Okay, let's play this check just to force the king back to a bad square. If bishop e5, I have f4, so he's pretty much forced to play king f5. And now we can play, for instance, rook here. Although I want to. Let's just bring the king up a little bit. He's trying to stop rook e6, but now f4 looks good. Tightening the grip on the black king. I'll try to follow with f3 and threaten g4 checkmate next. So he's going to break with his pawn. Take it. Or king f3. King f3, he can play g4 check. This king's still in really tough shape, though, after that. There's also just rook f1 right now. Probably the easiest move of all. Rook f1, g4, h3. Nah, let's just do this. And then we'll bring this rook over. Offer a trade. Trading rooks is equivalent to resigning for black now, so he has to play something like rook g6 or rook h6. But it won't be long. If rook h6, I have rook g7. Oh wait, no, I don't have rook g7 because the bishop is defending that square. That would be a big inaccuracy. Okay, let's just give a check first. Probably I can just play for checkmate here. Or close to it. And his pieces are so poorly placed. Bring the king up a little bit. Okay, now we can give a check here.
Check.
Force rook h6. And multiple ways to win. g4 is one of them.
Check.
No, it's just swap now. Go attack some of these weak pawns. And black has nothing to attack. Play g5. Bring our king up. h5 coming next.
Check.
Let's go after this pawn.
Check.
Force the king to the back rank. And start advancing still. So notice how I'm advancing my pawns on dark squares. This is a minor point in this particular position because it's so winning for white, but I'm advancing my pawns on dark squares to reduce the possibility of a blockade. That's like the main reason for this. Here I'm threatening rook d8 mate, and he doesn't have a good response to that.
Checkmate.
Okay, so we win that game. And he said, thanks from Townsville, Australia. All right, thanks to you. I'll tell him GG. So let's go back and have a look. I feel like black's position was okay out of the opening, but maybe he just moved a little bit too fast once we got into the middle game. He had some reasonable activity for the pawn. I'll have to look at this line again. I haven't looked at it recently, but I'd like to take another glance at it. So sometimes black tries to avoid playing a takes b5 for a while because bishop takes b5 can be played in one go. But the way that the game played out made this look all right for black. I'm going to start up the engine right here. I just took. He took with the knight, castles, and then knight g4. That seemed kind of odd, but then again, black does this in the Benko sometimes. They try to angle for the e5 square. I played bishop d2. Maybe e4 straight away is also an option. I thought I would take the opportunity to develop my dark square bishop when there's no pressure on b2. Knight e5, we traded. I played queen e2, then the knight came into b4. Here I played rook d1. So since black is threatening take followed by take here, I need to somehow defend that. And I thought rook d1 was a good way to do that. So if bishop takes c3, I can take with the bishop and my rook is assisting. What if knight c2 here? Just rook b3. Knight back to b4. Slim advantage for white. This looks pretty typical for this line. So black played queen b6. Yeah, I think knight c2 was actually worth throwing in. It's going to misplace my rook a bit. So I think there was some merit to playing that. So here I played bishop e1. And maybe right around here, black starts to lose the thread a little bit with rook a6 and rook fa8. It seems good to double up the rooks, but nothing ever materialized on the queen side for black. And they sacked the exchange too late. So the engine says play queen b7 and attack this pawn. Then I play e4 and then go for f5. Yeah, interesting, because that's also a move that I played against Chris Tulin. I played f5 at some moment to break up white's e4, d5 pawn structure. So I could see why it makes sense here as well. So rook a6 instead, and then knight b5. I thought this was good for me because now I was looking at that knight on b4 and thinking I could just play to win it or take it, exchange for it. b3, and now rook a5. That was a creative move. I thought black's position was pretty bad at this point, but rook a5 introduced ideas of taking the knight always. So I took, they took, and rook a2. Okay, so I was thinking if black was going to sack the exchange, they might want to do it a little earlier. But in fact, the engine says the move that... Oh, no, sorry, he played bishop c3. But the engine recommends just rook c8, getting on the file. So two possible lines I was looking at here. Queen takes b5 and rook takes b5. Rook takes b5 would be a normal way to sack the exchange. And then, like, come in here. And I speculated that a position like this could be tough to win because black dominates the dark squares. And they have a position that's relatively free of weaknesses. Those two pawns I just highlighted are weak, but they're on dark squares, so black can always try to defend them with their queen or their bishop. So I think this would be a tough conversion task for white. I mean, the engine has it plus 1.86, but this would take a while to win. The other line I was wondering about, which was pretty intriguing, was queen takes b5 instead. The engine doesn't like that quite as much for black. A takes b5, rook takes a2. So black gets a rook and a bishop for the queen, but he has a lot of activity. If he could win the b pawn, this might actually be a pretty promising sacrifice. But yeah, I was looking at queen c4 attacking this pawn. And if rook a1, fortunately I have this move. And I don't get back rank checkmated. And this b pawn is a force. So I guess this was probably not the greatest option for black, so he's correct to pass it up. Rook b8, queen takes b4, yeah. Even this, though. Rook a b7, b4, take the pawn, rook b1. Even this looks pretty tough to win, right? He's got a blockade right now. Maybe I can gradually bring my king over to help out. March the king all the way over to a4 to break down the rook on b5. But for the moment, he has me tied down. So those were two possibilities, but he played bishop c3 instead. I played rook over to c2. I was just happy to escape the pin here. Rook c8. I played g3, just getting out of the back rank problems. e4. Yeah, and I expressed some misgivings about e4. Maybe for the amount of time I had, I spent too long considering the ramifications of that move. Basically, I need d5 better protected. As I said, I wanted to free up this rook eventually, and playing e4 is a good way to do that. But I wasn't happy about weakening this diagonal. And now he sacrificed. So the engine doesn't like it so much. It says just keep the rook, play rook a8. But I think gradually white's going to start making progress. Like, moves like king g2, queen e3, rook d3, attack c3 multiple times. Maybe black can favorably take on b5. Favorably compared to the game, that is. So do it at a better moment. Because he just played it immediately, but if he could keep the queens on, this would not be so bad. I think that's kind of the key. If he can keep these pair of pieces on board, he'll have more chances to resist. I mentioned rook a5 in the game. I thought actually black might opt for this one. Trade a pair of rooks, but try to sneak the queen in and attack b3. This is like the ending before. It's not going to be easy to win. I might have to take some risks to win this, like start pushing my kingside pawns. I have to do so very cautiously. He played rook c5, and that allowed queen a6. I actually missed that he could play queen c7. I was thinking on any other move I had good responses. But fortunately, I have check, followed by rook a7, and I'm winning the e-pawn. Swap the queens, and yeah, this was pretty straightforward after this.
Check.
Yeah, his king got in a bad spot, too. I mean, realistically, to have any chance here, he'd have to go after b3, but it just wasn't possible with the amount of material he lost and where his king ended up.
Check.
Yeah, and possibly there was a faster way to do this, but I think the way I
Check.
played it worked out pretty well.
Check.
In winning positions,
Check.
you just have to win in the way that makes the most sense to you. Don't worry about overlooking an even faster win.
Check.
The computer might say that
Check.
you played it bad because you didn't play the fastest win, but
Checkmate.
who really cares? A win is a win. So, all right. So, yeah, I think markvucak had a fine position out of the opening. Some compensation, pretty typical for the Benko, but probably right around here. I think starting with rook a6, they got on the wrong track. And actually maybe even a move prior instead of queen b6. I think knight c2 could have been very pesky, and I wonder if he looked at that move. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll be back again soon with another one. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.